And hello and welcome everyone to the Transform Your Relationships live show. It's Laura Rubinstein and here with the awesome Rhoberta Shaler. Hi, Rhoberta.
Hi, Laura. How are you today?
I'm doing well. We have a hot topic today. How are you?
I am doing just fine today, better than I have been. And yes, we do have a hot topic, which I think is really, really worth diving into.
hmm Well, a lot of us, sometimes we don't even know we're doing this. It's living up to others' expectations of us, getting sucked into the pressure or the drama of other people's expectations. And sometimes it's subconscious. We need to become aware of it. I'd like to start there. Is like, okay, how do we even get ourselves into this position?
Well, I've said so many times on our show that everything starts with you getting acquainted with you. So the first thing that you have to do in this situation is just ask yourself that question. Am I living up to the expectations of others, or am I living up to my own values, my vision for my life, my beliefs, and my purpose? And then we have to watch for rationalizations and justifications. And then we have to think about the fact that once we become adults, we just make our own. We don't have to have that carryover from the past. And we might want it, but we need to examine it and say, yes, I think that's great what my parents gave me, or no, I don't want to live from that anymore. I choose differently. So that's what we have to do. It all starts with sitting quietly. Sorry, I know you'd like to take a course or read an ebook or something and have magical inspiration, but you do have to get in connection with your deepest self, yourself.
I mean, we did a whole show on this last time about getting into connection with your deepest self, your whole self. And I think that the challenge is taking the time, number one, understanding what you really get from that, number two, and knowing how powerful it is. Because I know when we do get that time with ourselves, stuff happens. And we talked about it being magical. So, maybe you can guide us through last time we did the whole thing on sitting with ourselves, but now how, once we're sitting with ourselves, getting to the point of realizing what our values are versus what other values or expectations are.
Sure. Well, the first thing is to consider your life as a whole and see how am I feeling about life today? Is this a good place? Am I avoiding looking at it? Am I excited to look at it? Am I fed up? Am I delighted? Am I joyful? Am I, whatever. And then say, all right, and ask the question, why? Why am I feeling like that? Whatever it is, whether good, bad, or indifferent. And then you begin to take that thread a little deeper and a little deeper. And then you get to the place where you say, where did this start? And what's under that? And what's under that? And that's how you take yourself down through to the origin of what's going on.
So the why is not always that easy to find. I find myself asking the why sometimes and not getting an answer. It's like, but why am I doing this?
Right. And that's very, very normal. So it happens to all of us. Okay, sometimes you get the answer. There is no why, it just is, right? But feelings are fleeting. Feelings are not facts. So if we have a feeling, we know it's going to change. But in the moment, just see what you can find. Sometimes we get to 3 o'clock in the afternoon and we think that, oh, I didn't get enough sleep and everybody around here is incompetent. And if one more person crosses my path and says something stupid, I'm going to scream. And so you sit down and you ask yourself, where's this coming from? What's this? And when you trace it back, you find out that you were running a little late this morning. Somebody cut you off on the freeway and the check didn't arrive in the mail. Has nothing to do with what happened at 11 or 12 or 1 o'clock. It's way back there. So that's a simple way that you can start looking at that. Let me see if I can trace how I got to this place feeling this way on this day. It's not right or wrong or good or bad. It's just what might have brought me here. And that's a great way to start looking at these things in a little more depth.
Yeah, and I know when I ask the question why, the reason I ask is because I don't always get an answer right away. But sometimes if I let it lie, but I'm persistent and like, okay, so maybe ask it in it. Why am I feeling this way, or what am I feeling again, and why am I feeling? And is this familiar to me? And what's going on in my life? If I can ask a few extra questions around it, even if I don't have an instant answer,
Mm-hmm.
either I sit with it for a little, or nothing's coming up, and I go, okay, well, I'm sure it's going to reveal itself to me. It's in its own time. At some point, I'm going to have this. I don't let go of the question. I let the question just be in existence until the answer comes or something gets resolved. But the key, what I'm getting, is to tap tap in a way that creates a question like it from a responsible. I can choose what not like I can choose what I'm feeling, but I can feel my feelings and let them give me information that has to do with how I can shift the situation. Because I believe our emotions are our soul's language of speaking to us and giving us gold and the richness to have the life we love and deserve. So if we give it that airtime, but right, sometimes it sounds like Chinese to us. Like we're feeling these weird feelings and we don't know why and we don't understand them. It's okay. It takes time to learn Chinese, right? As an American, anyway.
Yeah, and another thing, I wrote a book years ago. It's on Amazon. It's called "What You Pay Attention to Expands." So if we take that philosophy, and that was long before people were writing about the law of attraction, this is just simply our way that our brain works and how it interacts with our feelings and our neurobiology. That if I fixate on something, it'll get bigger and bigger and bigger in my mind. Now, that's true because sometimes you have a difficulty and you wake up in the middle of the night. That's all you can think about and you can't sleep and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But on the other hand, it works like if I have a question, if I just focus on that question, like you said very wisely, okay, I have this question, I ask it again, I ask it again, and eventually it becomes attractive and the answer begins to come. And it's because I'm willing to focus on it and allow it to expand. Maybe not my time frame, but it will happen.
It will happen. The I and so I'm sorry. There's some things going on my screen.
How dare they? They're interrupting the flow.
Here, no worries. So I love this whole. You'll notice what you've been saying and what I've been saying is, and the topic is like living up to others' expectations. We haven't even talked about the other people, right? So what is kind of cool about this is that we have the power to create our life as we want, and when we're setting our mindset to that, then the other's expectations just become almost irrelevant. We can deal with it from a centered place. So when I would like to hear some things about, okay, well, when somebody's expectations does come up, like they're saying them to you, well, you should be doing this, or why aren't you doing that? Or, like, how come you're not making as much money as you want? Or you don't have a job and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of pressure from the world and parents and siblings and aunts and uncles and spouses. And now that we're centered, how do we actually deal with this?
Well, I think that it's a great question, but first of all, we have to become emotional grown-ups ourselves. So other people's expectations of us have to be identified. Is it yours or is it mine? Okay, you start to hear somebody say, well, how come you don't have children? And okay, did you ask me if I wanted children? Wouldn't that be a better place to start? Instead of the assumption that everybody should want children and there's something wrong with you because you don't have any yet. It's very important to become very centered in who you are, because otherwise people will impose their expectations on you and they'll catch you off guard and you'll find yourself justifying. And in point of fact, that's absurd, because we're not here to live their life, we're here to live our life. And this is why it's so important. When Charles and I wrote Soul Solitude, taking time for our souls to catch up, we talked about two main predicaments in life, although there are many others. And one of them is our addiction to drama, and the other one is living up to the expectations of others. And that's what that whole book helps you with. And when we get into that situation, we have not left our childhood behind, because when we're little and our brain is undeveloped, we understand that we need those giants. As a baby, I can't move. I can't go find food. I can't take care of myself in any way. I intrinsically know that. I am petrified of abandonment for that reason. So I'm going to keep those giants happy. I'm going to make them smile at me. I'm going to gurgle at them. I'm going to do whatever I need to do. I'll cry to get them to do what I want them to do. And in my primitive communication, I will get them to take care of me. And therefore, I have an expectation that that will happen. And then we have abused children who learn that that expectation is false, and they get angrier and angrier and more resentment, or they get more and more passive and they just fade into nothingness.
I think one thing we should talk about is you just talked about being centered in ourselves so we can know what's us and what's them. Is there a danger in becoming too self-centered in that? Where is the line? I know this is an area of expertise for you.
Well, that's another great question, Laura, because you ask such great questions. But yeah, there's a difference between self-reflective and self-centered. Like if I am reflecting on who I am, and am I actually living my values, and am I engaged in creating my own vision for my life? Do I know what my beliefs are about everything, and am I actively acting on them? And what are my current plans and goals? That's me. But if I am self-centered, then it's all about me.com, and that means we haven't left the childhood behind. I want, I need, give me. That's the baby saying, you've got it and I need it and I know that. But as we develop, if we have help from parents and other adults around us, help us to become independent, then we know that it's not something that we need to get from other people. It's something that we need to be clear about within ourselves and say, oh, I do this because I believe this. I do this because this is my vision for my life. Those are the compelling whys that we do things. And that's what we need to know, right? Like, why am I behaving this way at 3:00 in the afternoon? What is my compelling why? I want to strangle somebody because the person cut me off in the freeway. I have lived all day with that old feeling. Let me get into the present moment and get conscious.
Yeah, I saw somebody recently at an airport talking to their child in like the meanest way, and I'm like, that is so not in alignment with what that child is doing, right? Like the child was just doing something. Could have been said in a nice way. So you know that something else was going on in that person's life to be causing that behavior and it comes out on somebody you love. So I think the danger of not being self-reflective and not asking ourselves why is that we just try to get rid of these emotions, or they come out in ways that we're probably not very proud of. And that's always time for me. Like if I'm snapping even at a customer service person, I'm like, something it's a little flag to me. It's like, okay, well, what is it that I'm not happy with in my life overall? Is it something that happened to me? Is it something I did? Is it, like there's all these questions that come up so I can deal with it instead of hurting people around me. I think that's a danger if we don't self-reflect. Would you agree?
I absolutely agree. And that's a great example of self-reflection as opposed to being self-centered. I actually have an old, and I use the word advisedly, tape that I used to sell 25 years ago. And it's called Being Positively Selfish. Because there has to be that distinction in my mind between being self-respecting, self-reflective. I know who I am and I know what I'm about and I know what's happening right this moment. I'm conscious, and being self-centered or self-important. And there's a balance in there. So if it's just about me wanting to know myself better, the self-reflection will serve you well. If it's about me wanting to have power over anybody else, it won't serve me well. Like, I teach negotiation for the University of Texas at Dallas in the project management MBA program. And one of the things that I have them do, and they were always surprised, these people come in, they're very engineer minded, and first thing I have them do is my exercise called the values shuffle. And they always ask the question, why? What do I need this for? And I say, well, I teach negotiation, as I said. So in order to be a negotiator is only as good as their knowledge of themselves. It is not a set of skills that you swipe on somebody and say, now go do these things. You have to know who you are, what you value, what's okay with you, what your ethics are. You have to understand negotiation theories of all kinds. But it's not, it comes through you. It's not something that you just lay on top of you. And I believe that that's true for everything in life, that we have to integrate it. I probably said it here. We read a whole lot, we watch a whole lot, we listen a whole lot. But what stays above our nose can often come out of our mouth and have nothing to do with our lives. So to be self-reflective means that whatever you took in and had value to you, it made it from above your nose down to your toes. It became you. You integrated it. But that's why we have to sit quietly, because if you don't, you'll just keep surfing. You'll never dive. And if you don't dive, what's life all about? That's where you'll get into the people-pleasing business. How do you...
Yeah, or the people-hurting business.
Yeah, or you're self-hurting, because you'll put yourself on the back burner to try and keep other people happy. You'll end up doing things that make you resentful at a minimum and angry, full-blown angry in other less enlightened moments. And it's all because you didn't decide where that line is.
I really like the idea of this, a negotiator is only as good as the skills you have, of really self-awareness. And it's so right, because I've found myself in both places, being able to respond really powerfully in the face of someone's, like you even said, like, okay, why don't you have children? And it's like, well, did you even ask me if I wanted children? Like, that response takes some self-awareness, that being able to, and I've had clients come to me, and I'm sure you've had tons of clients come to you about how can I speak more powerfully to people, and I don't know if the word is powerfully, but more in a way to people that gets out my truth and really, I'm sure the feeling is it puts them in their place, but stops the pattern of me feeling assaulted by their expectations.
Yeah.
And it's a skill, and yes, we'll know each other and know ourselves. For me, it was a lot of practice in that too. I needed to kind of reflect on how I did respond to certain situations and how I would like to have responded. And that self-reflection is not about the response. It's like, well, what was I feeling and what was my truth in the moment? And how could have I said that truth in a way that they would get it, that wouldn't make them wrong, but that I'd feel totally intact.
Right. And that you would feel heard and acknowledged and appreciated and accepted. And that's the big deal, that we can learn to, that's what I mean by being an emotional grown-up, so that we can say, here's what's going on for me. We've talked so many times on this show about the personal weather report. That's the only thing each one of us is an expert at, is what is going on within ourselves. And yet we love to say you, and that's really not a good starting place at all. Like, what's going on for me? What am I thinking right now? What am I feeling? What do I need? What do I want? If I know that, then I can tell you, oh, look at you. There it is. But if I can express those things, then I can let somebody in. And that's the meaning of intimacy. Susan Campbell wrote in an early book of hers, she said, intimacy is 4 little words, into me see. And if I'm going to open the door and let someone see into me, then I need to be able to tell them what I think, feel, need, and want. And when I can do that, then I'm letting them in. Now, if they come back at me and say, you shouldn't feel like that, you're going to close the door a little bit, right? And say, I'm not here to live up to your expectations. I am here sharing what it is that's going on with me. And if you're interested, I'm happy to share so we can build some trust. But if that's not of interest to you, then thank you for letting me know. Because some people are not interested in you at all. And they're so fearful that they're all about themselves.com, you know?
And that's a good thing to notice, is that when someone is in that state of fear, it is all about them. And that is what happens, I know, automatically for me. If I'm in fear, it's all about me. The more I know about me, the less fear I can go into, the less fear is going to trigger that. And we're never done. I've noticed, by the way, we're never done. Sorry. If you thought you've got rid of a particular issue, you've dealt with this in yourself, whether it's, intimate relationship, parental relationship, child relationship, you're never done. I'm sorry.
That's right, because there's a new day coming right on this one.
Gets better. Things get better. I mean, I have noticed more fruitful, joyful, loving interactions, but there's always something new. Like you said, there's always a new day, something new. And I mean, and maybe it's my own doing in a sense, I feel like, almost. And here's why. Because sometimes I feel like I set the wheels in motion with my intention that I'm a lifelong learner. Okay, so the universe is just providing learning opportunities, right?
Yeah, that's the old thing. Be careful what you ask for because you might get it. Well, yes, I mean, we are lifelong learners, whether we want to be or not, because we are not in this alone. There's going to be somebody else having a different day than you're having, and there's going to be an interaction, and they may be different. And we have to just expect that. There are times when if you don't start your day and go through your day with some sense of connection to who you are, and maybe some spiritual connection to something larger than yourself, then you're just going to be in that duking it out for the day kind of way of being. And that's not a very good way to be adversarial and combative. So how about being open and expansive and saying, okay, well, here I am. I'm in a good place. I now have more latitude to hear you.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I want to encourage and inspire people to check out your website to get more in touch with themselves. I think, we have some ideas here, but really it's about spending the time, and sometimes you don't even know. But if you go to Dr. Rhoberta's site at forrelationshiphelp.com, I believe, Rhoberta, you have like a wealth of information there that really makes people think.
I hope so, Laura.
Yeah.
I also have a membership site there for people who may be in relationship, whether that's parent, ex, partner, boss, friend, with what I call relentlessly difficult people. Those are my term for them as hijackals. And if you are in a sticky situation with a relentlessly difficult person, you might want to have a look. You'll find that there too.
Yeah, tons of great resources. I would love to have conversations with any of you. You can certainly go to transformtoday.com as well, and you can check out my marketing blog there. You can also look for my other services in hypnosis and ways to ask questions. Sometimes it's just I always think the question is more important than the answer. And that's kind of where we started off today. It's like, ask yourself why. Why am I feeling this way? See what gold is there for you. Actually trust that there is gold.
Yeah, and see if you can follow the thread back to a place that you can go, yes, that's it. That feels right. That's where it started. And then examine it and say, is that what I want to be thinking about? Is that what I want to be feeling from? And if not, then you get a chance to choose again.
And that's what life's about, making choices.
One moment after the other.
Yes. And We wish everyone make choices that serve you to the highest good and don't harm other people. That's where I'd like to leave today. How about you?
Well, I think that's very good advice, as your advice usually is, Laura. And I think also, be kind and gentle with yourself, but stay in relationship with yourself. Don't allow yourself to get sucked out there to doing out of balance, being there for everybody else and not for yourself.
Hmm.
Compassion extends in both directions. It's not just to other people. You have to have your own compassion. You have to take care of yourself and extend it to yourself too, and have that balance. And I wish everybody to find that balance every day.
Okay, here's to extreme self-care, everyone. We'll be back with you in another 2 weeks for another edition of Transform Your Relationships Live. Bye for now.
Bye bye.